Okay, welcome to the DirectCC 2017 Omnibus period of review. I'm coming to you from the venue for 2018 Monasters when we finally got it scheduled in beautiful Manassas Park, Virginia. I'm going to start off by letting at least Charlie and Maggie or anyone else who wants to give their sort of summary of the year as far as they're concerned.
Go ahead and go first, Charlie. You're the chairman.
I am.
I've asked if you wanted to do that. Don't feel like you need to. Otherwise, I have plenty of questions.
I'll introduce myself. My name is Charlie Blaine. I am a Midnight Lich on the forums. I am the current chairman of the Continuing Committee, and I think 2017 is a year of reflection and a year of introspection. On paper, I think that a lot went well in 2017. We had several releases for all of our games that were well received. We had quite a few excellently received high-level events. We're launching Excelsior for 2E, which is new, and we've got some great projects put together and that have been working on throughout 2017 that'll be coming out in 2018. But it's been a year of lessons learned and rocks kicked over, and some old ghosts back to haunt us a little, which is fine. I mean, that's just so it wasn't a perfect year. It wasn't a fantastic year, but I think it was a very good year for the majority of people who played and participated in our community. And pass it over to Maggie.
Hi, I'm Maggie Geppert. I'm sitting in finally as my real job as vice chairman, as John was just complaining about in the chat room. And so today, I've already talked a little bit. I think that we definitely had ups and downs in 2017, and I think that we can do a lot of things better in 2018. And there'll be some good stuff coming up for everybody next year for sure.
Okay. So my plans to have all the questions printed out people sent me are not going great. So we're gonna have to do this with me not having notes to check off, but that's fine. So let me start with Justin, actually. So what's the state of the donations, basically? Let's go over that.
I mean, we're, from a money standpoint, we look pretty good. My goal, I've talked with Charlie and Maggie about, to keep, at least 6 months to a year of basic minimal expenses available in case we live in an uncertainty world. If donations were to stop, how long can we keep the website and the basic functions and project teams going? And so we're sitting pretty good on that. All expected payments are in on time. Everything's current, and so we are looking pretty good. It's because of all of everybody's current donations that we are able to buy the play mats for Masters, all the the foils for Continentals, and not have to charge an entry fee. And so it's welcome and thanks to everybody in this community that puts us on for all of us.
Okay, so what I want to get at is how sustainable is the current cash flow issue situation?
I mean, from a sustainability standpoint, because we are all on donations, that is on the backs of everybody else and their lives, families, and their expenses that they have to pay for. as far as steady stream, we have a steady stream of income, donations coming in. And, with enough cash, as people can have seen on the monthly reports, we're around 2,000 available, which is a good, healthy position to where we don't have to ask, we need this or the website's going to close. And so I think we are future looking. We're looking good for most of 2018.
Okay. So I did hear some concern about things like the whatever the what's the sale that is on now called the 10th anniversary sale for premium memberships. There's been some concern that will hurt the cash flow situation in the future, because that's like our one product basically, and if people are not paid, is that a concern?
I don't think it is, because looking at the premium member totals since April, and to this month, we are significantly more. A lot of people have purchased premium members. People buy them even if it's paid for 5 years. I know we have some players up here in the local area that they buy just for the raffle tickets. Because you have memberships till like 2025. And so it's tying that to the raffle, I think, won't hurt that income source, because it's tied to those raffle tickets and the drawings that they can win foils they may not have, or old Decipher foils, whatever Dan chooses to put up. And so from a standpoint, since April, we've definitely taken advantage of this sale, and we've brought a lot more money in to that.
Okay. Sure. I wanted to pass that on, but personally, I don't have the forward planning skills to take advantage of a sale, so I'll continue to renew my premium membership whenever I log into the deck builder and I get the bad deck builder. So that's no problem for me.
And can I say something about that, actually, Ben?
Yes.
One of the things that you can do for the premium memberships is you can purchase premium memberships and give them to other people. So that's an advertising thing that people can do. Hey, friend, if you like this, here, check out the premium. Go.
I probably should have done that when we had a new player ask me.
Enhanced deck builder.
Ask me how to make a deck without the bad deck builder, and instead of making him, I should have bought it for him. But now that I know that, I won't do that in the future.
I think maybe the person who was asking the question was like, letting somebody buy now for $10 is less income than making them buy later for $30. Right? Yep. Like that's a $20 loss of income. However, if we sell 3 times as many memberships in this month than we would have throughout the course of the year, that's a balance. Also, you only get a 10th anniversary once, and doing something nice for the community isn't a bad thing, I don't think. And I don't think our premium memberships is it's a nice source of income, but I don't think it's the lion's share of our operating funds. That tends to come from tournament kits.
Okay, I could probably have found that out by reading the report, but
that's just. I mean, Justin is the expert, but I just felt like that might be the.
Yeah, honestly, this
lines.
Honestly, I didn't expect this job to have any math, so I'm upset now that I got asked math questions. Anyhow, I'm having technical difficulties and was unable to organize my questions, so we're probably going to jump around a little bit, but let me go through. Let's get into what I guess we're going with the term Kangazi. The more I hear it, I get more annoyed. I think I got convinced by Charlie that it's a bad name in our last discussion. I'm going to call it the late unpleasantness. So I'm going to go through James Heaney's questions, basically. And anyone who can jump in on that, go ahead. So, and I think some of these questions we know the answers to, but I'm just going to go through it. Okay, so let's start with, as far as you're aware, were any accusations, public or private, made against Mr. Tufts in 2015 or 2016 prior to the Kengazi tapes being discovered?
Well, as we discussed, Ben, in hindsight,
Right, go ahead.
As we discussed in our interview, in hindsight, it looks like there were.
Okay.
They were veiled. Though.
Right.
Prior to us receiving the initial message via the European OP coordinator, there was no Ken cheated post that I can find. Accusations that probably should have raised alarm bells in hindsight. But I think the answer to that question is yes. It's a yes, but though.
Sure. Okay. And okay, so that also addresses, when did the CC become aware that some Australian players believed Tufts had committed various infractions? Because let me just get into the I remember there was a little bit of confusion in the after our previous discussion, that there was some. I think you said you received a PM about Ken or something about Worlds 2015 from an Australian player before the message from the Europeans, but you didn't. You missed it. Am I remembering that right, or did we misinterpret what you said?
No, that is the case. It was pointed out to me that an Australian player was like, "Hey, I sent you this message and never heard anything," and I went and looked, and there was a message with a link to a video.
I see. Okay.
And I was like, obviously, I got this message. I don't remember it, and I don't remember following through on it. And I did apologize to that player, and to the best of my knowledge, that player was, I don't know if they forgave me, but they at least acknowledged that was what happened. So
right.
Yeah, it was just a oversight.
Okay, so now that I actually reread what James wrote, what he was actually asking here was, when did we learn that Australians had complaints about Worlds 2015 that weren't just Ken had too many cards in his hand? It's okay if the answer is November 2017, because that's when everyone else found out.
As far as I mean, again, looking back through things through the lens of, hindsight, there were reports, and there was passive reports, but I think actively this all came to light in November. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm saying the dates wrong, but yeah, when this all sort of became public is sort of when we all realized this was the card drawing was the tip of the accusation iceberg.
Okay. And does anyone have anything to add about that? Okay. Because and what James gets at here, and what I'm not going to go through this verbatim, but is there any effort to actually go reach out to the Australians and figure out what people are actually still might be accusing Ken of, and what is actually accused by people who are at the event in 2015, and to separate that from just rumors and grumbling on the boards? Is there any sort of effort to inventory that, or are we sort of considering the matter as closed as it can be?
I'm taking this as it's a super thorny situation to be like, we're going to open up this investigation about what happened, 2.5 years ago, and do anything about it retroactively. I don't.
Sure.
This is a larger discussion than just like I have not personally done anything because we wanted to have this review, the OP review. And we wanted to have this review and see what the
Right.
pulse was. My personal, not speaking as the chairman point of view, is that whatever was done isn't gonna. I feel like a lot of consequences have already been applied. Now, maybe there are more. Sorry, let me rephrase that because that's not the right direction. The thing that has to be done now is figuring out where we failed, why we failed, and how we never can fail that way again. I don't necessarily think that reopening an investigation and having like a congressional hearing style rehashing all of the events, in the name of like, do we further punish Ken is a good use of our time. What is a good use of our time is talking to those players, talking to the people who were affected by this, talking to the community, and finding out, how do we make sure that something like a year and a half, 2 years undiscussed, and that the accusations that were made, that legitimate or not, don't get lost. We need to increase channels of communication so that a player at an event that feels something happened can report that confidently and know that it's going to get investigated quickly and correctly. Not what happened in this case.
So is that does someone have that job to actually do that?
The director of organized play is who would take that mantle on. But again, this is going to be a process of adding new technologies and adding new methods of communication that are going to need to happen over the next 6 months. But I want to make sure that we have those in place before our next big major championship series, so that if something happens, and the odds of something happening are probably very low, but if something happens, that we have a process in place to deal with it quickly and correctly, and not to recreate the situation where players feel like they can't report anything because nothing's going to matter, and this back channel, not back channel, but these. I want people to be able to report these accusations cleanly and directly. So.
Okay. Yeah. Now I'm looking through these questions, and a lot of the rest of them are things that we went over before. So let me.
Maggie and Dan and everybody else might have other points of view on this. I don't want to exclude them, but
No, I'm fine with. I think there's other important issues that need to be discussed, and a lot. But you're correct, Ben. Some of the questions you asked have already been asked on the Hosp report before. So, I think that there's other issues for the continuing committee right now, and I don't want to. I don't want to shut this line of questioning down, but I think there's other stuff on the agenda for today.
And I'll say this. I sat down with you, Ben, to talk about these issues. If somebody else wants to do another one-on-one with me about this particular topic, or you want to do a follow-up one-on-one with me, I'll extend that offer.
I apologize for not going over these questions in advance the way I wanted to, but Grandpa doesn't know how the internet works, and Grandpa was having some problems this morning. So let's go. Let me find the warehouse question that Dan is on here for, so we don't need to keep him here for the whole time.
That means I got to unmute myself.
Yeah, where is that question? I don't even.
There was a question about the raffle.
Yeah. Okay.
There was a question about why does it take so long to get raffle bins up, and why aren't they up on time? Because it's a pain in the butt, and it takes me about. I mean, it doesn't take very long to go through warehouse and find things. I've got the next raffle stuff up, and I've got the next batch of bins for the raffle after the next raffle in hand. But the tool that I'm using to add them, while complete, it does everything I need. I've got to look up each image. I got to find the link to each image. I've got to type in, where the card came from, the full name, everything, the description, quantity available, and then hit this little button that populates the thing. And then I can't edit it. So if there's anything wrong, if I made a mistake or typed something wrong or cross-reference, or I've got to email Mileways directly, it's not the easiest thing to do. So I take my time. It takes a little while. So that's why it doesn't happen very often. I have all the tools I need that I should be able to keep in front of the raffles, but I say that every year. I think it's this time, and it doesn't get any better. So I think I'm finally at a place where I've done this enough that I think I know exactly what I want for the interface that I use, and I can probably put in a ticket. And if one of our programmers has some time to help me out, maybe things can get better and get a little faster. I don't know. In other things, past years, you guys have asked how many foils have been put together and the Continue Committee have sent out. I've got a count of just over 2,000 that we sent out in 2017 via release kits, tournament kits, prizes, etc. And we did a pretty good job of pre-packing a bunch, so I've got a bunch more out. All the ambassador promos finally went out. All the volunteer promos, everything is printed, ready to go. So it's just a matter of stuffing. And as far as next year's products, we've got a big what we call a scrapbooking party coming up at the holiday over New Year's. So we'll be putting up the remainder of the 2017 kits. I know they're out right now. We're short on buttons and supplies, so once those come in, those will go up. And the 2018 kits should be going up shortly. So the organized play group has done a great job of pre-approving and sending off promos so that we're ahead of the game for 2018. Everything's ready to go. We just need to put things together. In the past, we've been dragging our feet into April and March for regional kits and things like that. But that's all ahead of the curve this year, so I think that's going well. Anyway, if you have any other questions, anything else on the list?
I think it would be good if we promoted the raffles a little bit more reliably. Brian had a question that, why didn't we mention that when we are trying to sell premium memberships?
That one I can answer. That one, that article that I wrote, it had to be written quickly for a couple of different reasons, and I literally copied and pasted what it says on the promenade about the premium memberships, where it doesn't mention the raffle tickets, so we should probably update that.
Speaking for myself, I just learned from reading Brian's question that raffle tickets are included in premium memberships, so that probably needs to get updated.
I'm going to write that down right now and see if I can get Chris to update that in the next.
One of the other things that would be nice that I've asked for is an automated article system. The site already knows the dates that bins close, that the raffle is going to happen. So there's no reason it can't auto-generate just an article that says, "Hey, bins are closing in a week." The raffle draw is this weekend. I don't know why we don't have that. Probably because it's work, and our programmers do a lot of work.
Okay, great. So I think that I do think that's all the warehouse questions I had, and shipping questions. And unless anyone wants to yell at me in the chat room, Dan, you can go do whatever you got to do.
I'll hang up for a bit. I'm going to start entering the next raffle stuff since I'm sitting here. But if you hit me with anything, I'll be here.
Working on the camera, and that'll be fun. Yeah, great. So let's also. So there's been, I would say, after in the past month or so, more than the usual fuck the CC crowd talking about whether we need a new chairman. And let's start getting into that. I assume that I assume, Charlie, that you don't think we need a new chairman, but do you understand why people are thinking maybe just you saying I understand and I'm going to do better in the future about the late unpleasantness is not satisfying some people? Like, I think people want to see like something more concrete than that.
Well, I mean, I can certainly understand, especially anyone from Australia or who participated in Worlds 2015 being extremely unhappy with our response, and wanting to lay that at the feet of somebody. I certainly, human beings love to blame, and I'm not calling anybody out. They just love, like, we as a species want to know whose fault something is. And I would love to, you know, as the chairman, I can understand why people are putting that at my feet. And in a way, it is at my feet. This organization failed on multiple levels. So I guess I would ask, to answer your immediate question, I don't think we need a new chairman. I think that I have done, on the whole, far better than worse in the 10 years that I've done this job. I'm not in any particular, I don't have any desire to stop doing this job. I think I'm good at it. I think I have a lot of necessary skills for it. I think a lot of people still trust and believe in what I'm doing, and I want to keep doing it. And I've always said, if I'm not having fun doing this job anymore, I will turn in my resignation. And there are moments when it's very much not fun. You know, it's not fun to log in and read certain, you know, criticisms, or log in and read and find out that, like, oh, all this crap has gone down. I mean, it's not fun to be personally accountable for things that may or may not be directly your responsibility. But I'm not gonna sit here and say that this job is sunshine and roses, because it's not. But this job is important to me, and the thought of me leaving on terms other than my own is not a good thought for me. And I'm not going to stay if I'm not wanted. If we end up doing a no confidence vote and that vote passes, you know, I understand that. But I don't buy into any of this criticism that, like, I've been around too long or that I don't care like I used to, because it's just not true. I mean, I'm doing a lot of work on behalf of the CC, and I do it because I love to do it. And it's something that I'm passionate about. But I do understand the desire for more concrete steps taken and accountability to be laid. If people, but I don't, where the disconnect for me is, yes, we need to have more accountability, and yes, we need to put together plans, like solid public plans, and show progress on how we're going to deal with this. But I don't understand how me not being here in any way helps that. Okay, that's the disconnect that I'm having.
Sure, that's a fair, and I without editorializing about what I think about the validity of that answer, I think it's a fair answer to those questions. Let me go through specifically Sykes's questions.
I mean, the other thing is, like, you know, at some point, I know Maggie's going to try to assassinate me and take control, so I'll just bide my time and wait for that.
No. I am the hand of the king. That's it.
Yeah, let me. I do want to go through Sykes's questions, because I think they're going to phrase that. I think he phrased it in a less confrontational way than I did, which is probably better. But the way that I kind of have been talking to people privately about this is like, can you prove to me that you can do this job better than Maggie can? And I know Maggie, you just said you don't want the job, but that's basically the, like.
Yeah. Never mind. Go ahead.
Sorry. You're going to say she'll be fine, but or she would be great at it. But
she will be fine, and she will be great at it. But she she told me from day one, I don't want your job. So
right, okay. So yeah, so my jokey framing doesn't work either. So let me go through this because people do get Sykes had the question, what part of your job do you most enjoy and what part do you least enjoy?
Well, I mean that changes. I think the part that I least enjoy is having to don't particularly enjoy executive authority. And I know that's ironic because certain people, there are accusations that I abuse executive authority. I don't particularly like using it. I'm very much the type of person that's like, I'm empowering you to do a job, do the job. And when I have to come up and step in and say, you can't have this job anymore, or this needs to happen, or like when tensions reach a boiling point and there needs to be definitive action, that's when I tend to be most uncomfortable. It's something that I mean, in the 10 years since I've been doing this, I've gotten more comfortable with it, but it's still my least favorite aspect of the position, which is knowing that I have the authority to enact something by fiat that I don't like to do.
And maybe that's a shame because that's kind of the only time we see you around anymore is when it's time for you to put the hammer down on people.
And I'm aware of that. I'm not going to lie to you and say that I haven't disengaged on the forums a lot in the last year or so. And a lot of that is not, again, I'm not trying to name names or make people feel uncomfortable, but it's like there are a lot of discussions that I don't enjoy, that I don't want a part of.
Sure. Sure.
And I'm just not going to put my head in those. I'm kind of following the old, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything.
Sure.
Advice.
Sure.
But I need, as a leader, I need to be more involved, and I'm trying to get back to that, get more involved, be around the forums, be around the chat room more. I will say that I've been very active on the 1E pillar,
right.
the active brand manager, but
that is true.
I want people need to understand that toxic behaviors to any degree have an effect, and one of those effects is I'm not engaging as much in certain forums because I just don't want to. I mean, I'm busier than I was 10 years ago. I'm in a different place with my mental and physical health than I was 10 years ago, and I have to make better decisions. So it's like I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to participate in the community involved, but I don't have to dive into these discussions that are unpleasant, that are Trek related. I'm not saying I'm avoiding Trek discussions.
Sure. Yeah. So let me get into kind of what I think people are. What I think is a less confrontational sort of getting you to justify you having this job point of view, and that's that you're not going to want this job. You might get hit by a bus tomorrow or something.
True.
And I'll feel really bad when that happens. But so what happens when you don't have this job? And what I guess I mean is is there any kind of transition plan? Is there do people have passwords to things? Is there
that's a great question. We've done a lot. So basically, Justin getting appointed was sort of the impetus to do all of that. So we have a shared document that's shared with Justin and Maggie and a couple other people that has all of the passwords in it. That has all of the account. Justin has all of our financial account information. So does Maggie. So we have redundancy at the top level now. So literally, unless Maggie and Justin and I all fall over at the same time, Borg triplet style or something, that information is backed up and redundant. Is there a formal written down transition plan? Not that I'm aware of. That is something that I would like to do. Maggie and I have talked about that. But Maggie being the vice chair is our transition plan. If I get hit by a bus on the way to work tomorrow, Maggie's job is keep things running and get a new chairman. And that's what her position is. She keeps the ship afloat until such a time as the new chairman can be put into place.
Okay.
I do want to formalize all of that, but all of our passwords, all the keys to the kingdom are written down in redundant places. Once a legal entity named the continuing committee exists, the only thing that would be hard right now is reclaiming the domain names, because the domain names are in my name.
Oh, yeah.
Which is doable. You just have to, this guy's dead, and he has appointed us as the caretakers.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of paperwork. If we can transfer the name of the registrant of the domain names from Charles Plain to the continuing committee, that saves all that paperwork.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Justin, go do that right now. We'll
we are in process. It's a long process, as we discussed on Friday. But we are moving forward.
We're gonna put up an article. I think I sort of just decided this. I'm gonna put up an article in the next week that sort of explains what the journey is and where we are and where community involvement will be, and so.
Okay.
Such like.
So we have.
Yep. Go ahead.
We have a draft of possible bylaws, articles of incorporation, moving on right now. As soon as we get the draft finalized, then we're going to put it out for public comment. And as I mentioned in yesterday's period of review, that's I'm hoping we're going to make that the model going forward. That we get an internal document done, it's ready to go. We do internal commentary first from board members and other volunteers, then we put it out for public comment. That's what we did with the video policy. That's what I want to do with the bylaws. We also want to have in place in the bylaws, a way for people to oh god, I just flipped over to the chat room. Sorry, got distracted. And just to see if there are any other comments on this topic, there will be a way in place for people at least to vote on what we're going to call the board members. So not everybody who's a green badge right now is going to be a board member in the future. We're looking at department heads being the board members in the future. And so I want the general public to be able to have a say on who's on the board.
And one of the questions that was brought up is we used to do no confidence votes way back in the day, and then we stopped. Why did we stop, and what are we going to do about it? One of the reasons we stopped, the main reason we stopped, is we didn't have a procedure. We always just kind of made it up, and there's no written down documentation on how to do it. Since it seems like there is now a community desire to have that process in place, as soon as it's in the bylaws and those are adopted, it'll be in place. But I'm not going to just arbitrarily call for a vote of no confidence with no procedure in place. Yeah,
go ahead and keep posting this thing and answer these questions before I have to ask them, because that's a lot more convenient for me. I'm gonna go get lunch. You guys handle it. But because that is exactly where I was going. The other place I was going is there's there's been concerns expressed that if Charlie got fired, Chris Lobbin would pack up the website and burn it down like Anthony Hopkins in Westworld.
Spoilers! If you haven't seen Westworld yet, spoilers.
That's not even accurate. But first of all, it's a year old. Second of all, that's not even accurate. But what's the So what does the transition plan extend to the technical side of the? Is there a transition plan for Chris Lobbin? It is basically.
We do regular backups of the site. So if Chris goes Bibbles, and to steal John's term, which I've stolen, it's mine now. If Chris goes Bibbles and deletes the website, that's gonna suck.
People got to stop taking credit for my terms. I think I gave him that term, but
Oh, is it? No, it's fine.
James Heaney is our Chris Logan backup plan.
Yeah. Chris has help now. We brought in 2 people to help him, one with achievements and one with general programming. One of those people has had some sort of unfortunate personal circumstance and isn't available anymore. But James Heaney is still around to help out with text.
Chris is logged in the chat room, so I'm even more distracted. Pouring gasoline on the anyway.
Chris is a professional, and I don't. At a certain point, you have to trust the people that you're empowering, but you have to have a backup plan in place. So, like the backup plan for if Chris is unavailable is James would keep. James knows enough now to keep things running. Obviously, that would be a major setback if Chris was no longer available. But it's not going to immediately result in the website shutting down.
Yeah. So I think the more sort of general way of getting at the issue about, and I've been trying to get out for the past half hour or so, is Charlie sort of seems like Charlie, I think in the past has seemed sort of indispensable. Like and not I don't mean that in a good way or a bad way. I mean that like if something happened to you, the CC would go away. And I think there's concern about I think there's concern about that still, but I think I'm hearing that you're saying that you're aware of that issue and you've been trying to address it, and that's even part of what appointing Justin and so on has been about.
Well, I mean, it's been a criticism. This is the CC's 10th year, and for probably 8.5 of those years, people have been saying that redundancy, and it's something that we've worked on putting into play. It's a reason we have so many volunteers is that it was easy to have I used to do the warehouse stuff and I couldn't do it. So Dan stepped up and volunteered,
Right.
There's things that I couldn't do. Like I used to make the website and then it got too big. So Chris volunteered. But there was always stuff I couldn't do. That's where Johnny came into play, but I can't make cards look pretty, but I think I don't believe that I am indispensable in that the things that I do can't be done by other people.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I didn't mean you're not indispensable anymore in that you're not as good anymore. I mean, what I meant was that you're not it's not literally out of your basement and no one could take over for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's redundancy. There's distributed information. There's the role supersedes the person. The work would get done if I wasn't here. So.
Okay. So that.
I mean.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just don't know what would happen if I wasn't here. You know what I mean? That's never been the case. So it's very how would things go if Charlie wasn't around? I don't know. I can't answer that. And any speculation to that point, I can't make. It's literally never happened in the history of the CC. So.
Okay, so I'm going to get past. We're going to put a end to the planning Charlie's funeral stage of the POR, and I'm going to go through some of the.
I want a Viking funeral.
Sorry. Okay.
I want a Viking funeral.
All right.
Done. I'm on it. I'm gonna start the ship in my backyard right now.
At 21 phaser salute.
Take me to Gen Con and have a little funeral / party, and then light me on fire in a boat, sent me down the river. So.
Okay. This is getting too real now. Let me. and forgive me if these have been answered, but I'm going through the thread and finding questions that I feel like we haven't actually covered. So Justin, when you figured out what Charlie owes the CC, was what like how? I guess the question is, how was that done? Like, what was the Charlie's expenses in starting everything up considered?
I believe the circumstances of how the dollar amount was factored in was in an original article that Charlie wrote regarding an audit that he, I believe, had performed on his finances at the beginning.
So
okay.
Justin didn't find that. To be clear, that was discovered by me.
Okay.
So to recap, what took so long getting the finances separated was that when I created the CC, everything was commingled. Charlie's money and the CC's money were all in one account. I created the CC's PayPal account and spun things off. But legally, that was, and for the longest, just priority. It was something that I knew I wanted to do, but it just wasn't a priority. Those years, funds flowed back and forth because it was a PayPal account that I was still using. So, like, you know, if I sold something on eBay, money went in there. It was a mess. So I had some financial challenges that I couldn't make the CC's revenue public because that information could then be used against me. So once those were resolved, we audited the books. I paid for an audit, and in that audit, they discovered that over the course of however long, that amount of money, whatever it was, $1,500 or so, of CC money was spent on non-CC purchases. Now that doesn't factor in, I think it was like $8,000 of Charlie's money that was used for CC stuff in the first 18 months. That I wrote off as a donation.
Okay.
Because it was. So all of that, it was like, that's donated money, that's fine. This amount of money was CC money that got used for non-CC purchases. So that was discovered. I told Maggie, because this was pre-Justin. I told Maggie. Maggie and I were like, and I went to Maggie and I'm like, this, you know, do I resign over this? What do we do? And she said, let's just own it and you pay it back. And we came up with terms, which was 36 months with interest. And it broke down to, what is it, $45 a month, however much it is, 40 something, 99. And so we were like, okay, I'm going to pay it back. And as soon as we made that public, and then Justin took over all the money and everything was separated. And so it was like, cool. That's how that all happened. So no, it didn't factor in money, Charlie's money that was put into the continuing committee. That never was even touched. I wrote that off as a donation. I mean, this was just, it wasn't like it wasn't embezzlement. And the people who were saying it is, I don't appreciate. It was simply commingling of funds and poor accounting. Once it was caught, it was separated out, and it's being paid back.
Okay. So, that actually leads to a question John just asked in the chat that I had mentioned before. And this is, I guess, a question for Justin. So the anonymous donation that's going toward Charlie's debt payment plan specifically, but it does seem like there's a lot of anonymous donations happening, and whenever there's some kind of trouble, there's some that steps in. CC kind of getting used to that, like kind of getting dependent on like big one-time donations, or are we? Is there something more sort of sustainable happening?
Well,
You know,
Does that make any sense?
I mean, we weren't counting on anything like that. People, when it was announced that that $1,500 was missing, I know of at least 2 people who came up and said, "Hey, he's done a lot for us. I want to help out a little bit with this." And Charlie didn't have any say in that, whether those people did that donation or not. I said, okay, if that's what you want to do, we'll earmark it for that. And that was my decision. But no, we're not getting used to these big one-time donations, and we don't need them. I mean, Justin can tell a little more, but we're running fine on the normal donations that we're getting. Anything that's been a big one-time donation, like our anonymous benefactors for the World's Purse, who thank for that. That's been a surprise and gratifying, but not necessary for the healthy running of the website.
And I say if somebody to go John's question in the chat room, why wasn't the donation rate made public? Finances, are confidential. I work in a bank, so I'm very familiar with that. And if somebody, wishes to, I don't want to discourage a donation. People want to make a donation to the organization. It's great. If they want to tell me how, to direct it in the books, it's their money. I'm not going to say no. And I'll leave it at that. And that's really it.
Okay.
Can I say something? Sorry, just to address John's questions in the. Can we make a new policy that any anonymous donations cannot be earmarked for certain things? The donations are not anonymous. They have their names on their PayPal accounts, okay? And we have a policy that we are not putting any donation information onto our books, because people have a right to privacy in how they donate their funds. Okay, that's. I'm not going to tell somebody, oh, well, you have to, if you're going to do the World's Purse, you have to make your identity known. And I'm not gonna put strings on that for people who want to do a donation.
Okay, okay. So I think we covered that issue. Let me get into looking at some of these questions. So.
Sorry, can I briefly revisit a previous topic with a humorous interlude? I got an IM from someone who said, I think the CC should at least try to get you to space instead of a Viking funeral. So
okay.
into space. So. Also, John, a decision that you disagree with is not a bad decision.
Should I just get him on the? Should I just invite John in?
I just saw him in the chat room. He said it leads to CC management making bad decisions like the World's Prizes. A decision you don't agree with is not inherently a bad decision, John. Learn to live with that.
Okay.
That's why John wants me to be the chosen one, don't you know, Charlie? Because he thinks I'll just do whatever he wants.
Okay, John actually did have a question that I want to get into. I think we briefly just discussed it, but you mentioned that you are working on a draft of bylaws. Those will cover a process for potentially removing a CC member that the community wants to remove. I know that it's something that's more formal than the ad hoc vote of no confidence and what we have now, which I've described as everyone says mean stuff about you until you quit.
Yes, and I would never give those people that much power over me. the it's tricky because like we have a template that we're following that models the corporate entity that we're trying to become, which is like a social club. I think it's one of the nonprofit organizations.
But okay, that's not your fault that it sounds shady, but okay.
Appropriate. It sounds like old money mobster shit, but it's actually
yeah. Anyway,
it's just what we're doing is just going through that document, going through that template, and like cutting out the stuff that doesn't apply to us. But yeah, I think in that document there are two ways at least to remove someone, which is a vote of the board members can remove another board member, or the community, a certain number of the membership can call for a no confidence vote, at which point then it goes to a vote and they're removed. And then for any of the sitting board positions, which as in our current design would be chair, vice chair, and the 5 department heads. So,
but what are the department heads?
Department of Organized Play, vacant. Department of Public Relations, vacant. Department of Operations, vacant. First edition, vacant. And second edition. But the OP operations and public relations are all going to be filled hopefully by the end of January. Operations and public relations are already posted. So if you're interested in those, you can read the applications, and then OP should be going up this week. We were waiting until after these reviews to make any changes. So,
okay. So I am seeing that. I'm also seeing Justin said he was going to address if our books are in good enough order to incorporate as a nonprofit when the topic was brought up. Have you addressed that to your satisfaction, Justin?
Sorry, repeat the question, Ben.
Sorry. Are our books in good enough order that they're no longer a barrier to incorporating as a nonprofit?
No, I mean we're good on that. You know, there's other things that will come down the pipe as well. You know, but that doesn't need to be spoken of at this point. We're good.
Okay. And Honest in Australia, whose name I don't know, asked, when the CC or department of makes a decision, why isn't the full weight of all CC's departments thrown behind that decision? I think there's a lot in that question, that there's at least perception that that's not happening.
Well, I think I mean I know what that's referring, which is the Australian decision. What I can say is that the people in organized play, when we discussed this, have all been behind it. Probably what we should have done, which we didn't do, was take it to the Players Committee board. But some of the people who have vocally come out against that decision, who are volunteers for the continuing committee, would not have access to that board. So some of the things that have gone on would still have happened anyway. So honestly, oh, go ahead, Charlie.
No, I'm sorry, Maggie. I thought you were done. Oh, okay. This is something that I legitimately try to do. Is back the people that I put into place. I'm be the first to admit that I probably haven't done it as much as I should have. But like, this is something I learned in college. But if you're going to give somebody a job, a set of responsibilities, you have to back them up when they do those things. At least in terms of forward facing. And I gave an example, I think, when you and I talked, Ben, which was like, when I was a manager of a restaurant, if a supervisor got into it with an employee, I always backed up the supervisor to the employee. And then if I thought the supervisor was wrong, I talked to them in private. But I tend to operate the same way with the CC. So it's like, if I empower a person to make a decision, they make that decision, I'm going to back them up.
Yeah, people hate that analogy, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
and
it's a good analogy, and I mean, the people who hate it, that's fine. Everybody hates something, but
yeah, many
like,
people are saying anyway.
so and also, it's a part of this is that, if we want people to do these jobs, we can't go after after a decision is made public, we can't all of a sudden back out, because when is anybody, then there's just going to be paralysis. We're going to have people who are not making decisions and not doing anything at all, because they'll be like, well, if I make this decision and it's unpopular, well, then why I'm not going to get backed up. I mean, and who would want to do a job? Who would want to do some sort of job if that's going to be what happens all the time?
Right, and I mean, I want to try and get back on track to the original issue. Is that at least in this case, it seems like some people did not feel that that the decision was being backed up.
And
I mean, it's still in place, even though, like, in spite of everything that's gone down around it.
Yeah, I mean, like, when Ken decided that it was going to be in Australia, that it was done. The only reason that would change, and I've said this before, the only reason that will change is if it's no longer a physical possibility, or all of the people who are organizing the event on the local level tell me they don't want to do it anymore.
And
once it was in Australia, I mean, I put my full weight behind it. There's no question on that topic.
I think I wonder if the perception is that, like, you were there, like, you're saying this is the final decision, but it did seem like maybe, like, not having this person to ask for to clarify. I think the idea is that because you're not as vocal and present on the site, maybe you weren't creating that perception, I would imagine.
Or maybe also that blew up the day before Thanksgiving and people had other things going on.
There is that.
Here's the thing. I mean, to Kieran or Ken or anyone who feels like I haven't backed their play, I'm sorry. I try to, as a manager, as a leader, I try to back you guys up. And if you feel that I didn't, I will work to do better. I mean, I have certainly backed people up with decisions that I thought were bad, but they were theirs to make.
That's a good answer, I think.
And it's not like, the accusation that this is people who think this is a bad analogy think that it's like that we're not beholden to what the people want. And I think that's false equivalency, because we just need to make sure they're involved we just need to make sure their input is up front, right? Like, if the players no longer want a continuing committee and no longer want management, then that's a whole different topic.
Let's just do whatever, man.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like if
why you gotta have all these rules, man?
Obviously, the people have to trust and believe in the people that they have elected to these management positions, or elevated to these management positions, because there was no actual election.
Right.
The bylaws that therefore are what's going to provide the public the ability to recall the people that aren't doing their job to their satisfaction. So if we'd had the bylaws in place, and this whole situation had happened, the decision-making process had happened, and worlds had been made public, the people would have had the option to say, hey, we don't think Ken's doing his good job anymore. We're going to recall him. And if that vote had passed, that's it. Ken is stepped down as director, and we replace him.
Right.
The piece that isn't there yet, and that we've really struggled with over the past years, because I've said this in multiple periods of review, is we have to make sure the public is solicited during the decision-making process. So, if we failed anywhere, it wasn't like, hey, here are the two locations we're talking about for Worlds 2018. Rotation says we should go to Australia, but as a backup, we're considering this place. And then we put it out for discussion and see what people say. That doesn't mean it's a vote. It's not a, it still would have ultimately been Ken and the Department of Organized Play's decision. But if 99% of people are coming against the decision and you come in and decide that 1%, again, that's where having a system on the back end of you're just, this isn't working for us has to exist. So it's like there are two missing pieces to the process as it was implemented this year.
Yep.
But the part that isn't missing is, at least I didn't feel was missing, was that the leadership is backing up the decision makers. Like, okay. I didn't get into that thread and start swinging, and if that's what Ken wanted, I apologize, because I pretty much told him I wasn't going to do that up front.
Let me specify. Ken, I asked Ken specifically if he meant to say if he meant to complain about that, and he said no.
Yeah,
I didn't even ask this question. So
I don't think Ken's got a beef, but so I just noticed. There's a question in the chat room that says, it sounds like I'm saying no matter how stupid the decision, we will back it up. I'm sorry if that's how it's reading to you. That's not what I'm saying. Like I said, if I think the person making a decision is making a bad decision, they're going to hear it from me before that decision is made. But like, being empowered to run a department is not being empowered to do whatever the fuck you want. It's and deciding we're going to have the world championships at the McDonald's down the street from my house is not a good decision. And that's going to get you, you're going to get called out on that. But a decision that people didn't agree with is different than it being a bad decision. I still don't think allowing the Australians to have this event when they were willing to work on it and put it forward is a bad decision. It's just not a problem.
Yeah, and I think the lack of public input, I think part of the pushback and on like I think what you're saying is like the decisions need to be final, but they need to be made in a better way that lets that finality be more satisfying to the public. And I think that this is an example of a decision that was not made in that way.
Sorry, I'm trying to parse that.
Yeah, I think you're saying that once a decision is made and announced that this is the decision, it does need to be final, but that where the CC needs to improve sort of a period of public comment on these decisions, so that, because like the first that people saw publicly of the first people saw publicly of this decision, if they weren't talking to Ken personally at events, was that, hey, the world's in Australia, and that's how it's going to be. And I think I think that's what really rubbed people the wrong way.
Yeah, I think an analysis of what happened in this process is definitely something that's being worked on, and try identifying points of failure. But it's not like, just as an example, we appoint somebody as director of organized play, however that process happens. That person's job is to manage that department and make sure that organized play issues are getting dealt with, and ultimately be the decision maker on organized play questions. But they still are accountable to the public and accountable to me and Maggie. So it's like, I'm going to use you as an example, Ben. I put you, Ben Hosp, in charge of organized play, and you're like, all right, all continentals and regionals and worlds are all going to be in my house. You and I are going to have a conversation.
Right.
Even if that goes up for public comment, you and I are still going to have a conversation. This gets back to what you mentioned earlier about executive authority. Is really, Ken makes the decision, and I have to sign off on it.
Right.
Now,
yeah.
Me backing up my people, me backing up the people that I put in these positions is I'm 99% of the time going to sign off on what you decide because I've trusted you to make that decision. It's not an automatic thing. If you make a stupid ass decision, to quote Samuel L. Jackson, I'm going to ask you about it and we're going to have a conversation about it. But so basically, when you make a decision as a department head, you're accountable to the public and you're accountable to the chairman, whomever the chairman is at the time. I would imagine that to be true, whether it's me or Maggie or whomever comes down the road. It's not like they have absolute authority to make whatever decision they want and it can't be challenged. That's not the impression that I'm trying to give. Like, ideally, in my mind, it would be empower the person and their team. They discuss the factors. They come up with options, or even they come up with a decision. The public gets the chance to comment on that decision. They put it on my desk, and then I sign off on it. Okay. So there are multiple points of failure in there where if the public thinks it's a stupid decision, and then they put it on my desk, and I'm like, you're doing what literally nobody in the public wants, I can kick it back to them. I'm not going to put my full weight or the full weight of the organization behind a decision that I can't put my name to.
Sure.
Because ultimately, if it's going to be not at just the foot of that person, but at the foot of me. So it's empowering the person. And at that point, my options are you're fired or go back and come up with another option. And that's where I get a little uncomfortable, is like, I have that authority. I just don't like to use it.
Sure.
But I'm going to use it when I have to.
Sure.
I'm not afraid to use it. It doesn't paralyze me. It's just something I would prefer to not have to do because I'd rather have people in the positions making good decisions. So.
Yep. Yeah. I think and I think this is going to get us back around to something I want to, one of the things John was complaining about in the chat room that I think is right is that or that I think is a misunderstanding is you said the only way, the bylaws are going to say that the only way to get rid of a CC member is the 5 department heads. I think there was a second.
No.
Yeah.
There is at minimum 2 ways: a unanimous decision of the rest of the board.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
A public recall.
And there will be a period for public review and comment on these bylaws, right?
Absolutely. But like the idea being, we hire somebody as the director of public relations and then they quit. Right? They don't show up.
Right.
That's where the board would be like, all right, we're removing this person as the director so that we can hire someone else. That is the circumstances which I would imagine that to happen. Dissatisfaction with job performance, I would imagine, is almost always going to come from the public. Not necessarily, but most likely. It's the bylaws are going to try to provide multiple paths to an outcome, and at least one of those paths will be public driven.
Okay. That I think was I think that's the big issue that I still had outstanding. I don't know of anything we didn't cover that I think still needs to be addressed. Does anyone else have anything to add?
I just want to, there has been a call for a vote of no confidence in me. I'm more than willing to put that into place. If anybody out there wants to contact Maggie and come up with a procedure to use ahead of the bylaws to do that, if you feel that it's urgent, please contact Maggie and work with her, and we'll come up with a procedure and we'll put that into place. Barring that, as soon as we put the bylaws up, I would imagine as part of the bylaws, there would immediately be some sort of like confirmation of the current board directors prior to it going into effect.
I'm of the Go ahead. Sorry.
My point is, I want this job. I believe the majority of the public wants me to have this job. I'm confident that I will survive a no confidence vote. I'm not afraid of that. So if that's something the public wants, then
I'm actually serious when I said I think if we had a system of a no confidence vote and then you then ran for your old job again, I think every year we would fire you and rehire you, and that would be a fun ritual for everyone. But because I think people are mad at you a lot, but also like I don't know how substantive the complaints are from some of the maddest people, but yeah, that.
I'm just saying, if there is sufficient demand in the public to put me up for a vote of no confidence, I'm not going to dodge that. I'm not going to weasel my way out of it. I'm not going to resign to get out of it. I welcome it. If the public truly doesn't feel that I'm fit to do this job anymore, I'll accept that decision. But I don't believe that's the case. And anyone who thinks that I don't want this job and that I don't care, you're out of your mind.
Okay, that's a good place to end it, if any. Thanks, everyone. This has become clear, this show's gone on too long, and I can't talk. I can't be on camera for more than an hour without my brain starting to melt down and me not being able to talk anymore. So, thanks, everyone. Yeah, great.